I stood there in the middle of the empty office feeling as if my heart was being torn to pieces. My name is Michael Bennett, 37 years old, and just 2 weeks ago I was still the CEO of Bennett Innovations, a technology company into which I had poured my entire soul. Phoenix, the city of glittering neon lights and shattered dreams, was now nothing more than the backdrop to my nightmare. I watched the last remaining employees taking down the company sign. The screeching sound of metal against metal was like the mocking laughter of fate. For the past 8 years, I had lived for this place. Bennett Innovations was not just a company. It was my spiritual child, built from absolutely nothing with my own 2 hands. I still remember those early days vividly when I was just a young programmer sitting in a tiny apartment on the outskirts of Phoenix coding until my eyes blurred from sleep deprivation. Countless all-nighters, cold coffee sitting beside me, and so many moments when I nearly gave up. I had sacrificed everything. Vacations that never happened, late nights away from my wife and child and even my own health. Now everything had gone bankrupt. All my efforts, money, time, and pride had officially fallen into the abyss. It felt like someone had stabbed me in the chest and the blood was seeping out drop by drop. But the cause was not the brutal market or any financial mistake. It came from the one person I had trusted completely. My wife, Jennifer Bennett. She was 34 years old, beautiful enough to turn heads wherever she went, seductive with a smile that could melt anyone. But behind that smile lay ambition and deceit I had never suspected. We met 8 years ago at a tech conference in Phoenix. She was a brilliant marketer with flowing golden hair and sparkling blue eyes like a lake. I fell in love with her at first sight. I loved her intelligence, the way she laughed, the way she held me after long, exhausting days. We got married after a year, and our daughter Grace was born like a gift from heaven. I thought I had everything. Career, family, happiness. But now I realize it was all an illusion. I still do not know how Jennifer managed to have an affair with my direct competitor for nearly 3 years without me suspecting a thing. Daniel Hughes. That name is now a scar burned into my mind. He was the CEO of Hughes Innovations, the company that competed directly with Bennett Innovations. We had met at industry events, shaken hands politely, but always with caution. I never imagined that while I was struggling with work, Jennifer was secretly meeting him. Those late meetings, she mentioned those short business trips, they were all covers. I remember the evening she came home late carrying the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume, and I just thought it was from working hard. "That last business trip really wore me out, honey," she would say, then cuddle up and fall asleep in my arms. I believed her. I always believed her. Then everything exploded. Major contracts, financial reports, everything was stolen. It was Jennifer who did it. She had access to my systems because I trusted her as much as I trusted myself. She copied the data and passed it to Daniel. He used it to undercut my clients with lower prices and steal our product ideas. When the scandal broke, it was like a bomb going off. One morning, I opened my email to a flood of messages from investors. "We no longer have confidence in your company. We are pulling our funding." The media descended like vultures, publishing stories about internal fraud at Bennett Innovations. They painted me as an incompetent fool who could not control his own company. In just a few weeks, everything collapsed. Employees quit en masse, clients canceled contracts, and the stock price plummeted. I tried desperately to save it, begging on the phone, holding emergency meetings, even selling personal assets to inject cash, but it was useless. I fought back until the very end, but I was completely powerless. Evidence was manipulated and turned against me. Forged emails, doctored documents, everything pointed to me as if I were the mastermind. Jennifer denied everything. She cried in front of the cameras, pretending to be the wounded party, claiming I was slandering her out of jealousy. "He has always been suspicious of me. I really do not know anything about this," she said in an interview, tears streaming down her cheeks. "And Daniel, he used his reputation and connections to crush me completely. He had friends in the media, top lawyers, even government officials. They turned me into the villain and Bennett Innovations into a joke. Now, standing in the middle of an office being dismantled, I blame myself for being so blind. Why did I not see it sooner? The little signs, late-night phone calls, hastily deleted messages, the growing coldness in our marriage. Why did I trust someone as scheming and deceitful as Jennifer so completely? I clenched my fists, tears rolling down my cheeks, without me even noticing. 8 years of building, 8 years of sacrifice. Now there was nothing left but an empty room and the feeling that I had just been erased from existence. The sound of hammers pounding against the walls echoed like blows to my heart. I stepped outside. The desert wind of Phoenix blew past, carrying dust and pain. I drove home in a daze like a ghost drifting along the familiar streets of North Phoenix. My mind was chaos. Images of the gutted office kept replaying on an endless horror loop with no pause button. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white, and I had to force myself to breathe deeply just to keep from swerving onto the curb. The house, the home I once proudly showed off to friends, now appeared before me with a for sale by bank sign dangling from the gate like a death sentence for every happy memory. I had poured so much sweat and tears into this place, taking out a mortgage to buy it, renovating every corner, turning it into a sanctuary for my family. Now the bank owned it because I could no longer make the payments. Today was the last day I was allowed inside to collect whatever belongings remained. Just thinking about it made my heart feel like a stone was crushing it. I parked, stepped out on trembling legs. The gate creaked as I pushed it open, and the desert wind blew dust into my face. Inside, the air was ice cold, as if the house had already died long ago. The living room was stripped bare. Most of the furniture was gone. Only a few cardboard boxes lay scattered around. My heart was pounding, but I was not prepared for what was waiting. Jennifer, my wife. The woman I had sacrificed everything for stood there with her arms crossed, as though she had known exactly when I would arrive. She wore a tight black dress, her golden hair loose over her shoulders. But her eyes were arrogant, full of challenge, as if this were her house alone, and I was the intruder. 2 months earlier, after the affair was exposed, Jennifer had left the house and moved in with her lover Daniel Hughes in the wealthy Oak Ridge Hills neighborhood with its luxurious villas. She took our 7-year-old daughter Grace with her without a single word of explanation. I still remember that night vividly. When I walked through the door, Jennifer had already packed everything. She stood in the hallway, suitcase ready at her feet, one hand gripping Grace tightly as she hurried the child along. "Daddy, where is Mommy taking me?" Grace asked, her innocent eyes wide. I knelt down to hug her, but Jennifer yanked her away. "Do not make this worse, Michael." Then they were gone, leaving me alone with a pain that tore me apart. Now, seeing her standing there, all the suppressed rage, resentment, and heartbreak exploded inside me like fire. I lunged toward her, voice shaking. "Why, Jennifer? Why did you betray me? What did I do wrong? Was not I providing enough? Did not I love you enough? Was I lacking something? Tell me." She only smirked a cold smile that sent chills down my spine. "You have always been so mediocre and boring, Michael. I have put up with it long enough." Her words cut into my heart like a knife. Mediocre. Boring. I had worked myself to the bone to build a life for us, sacrificing sleep and time with my daughter just to grow the company. Yet now she looked at me like a total loser. She continued her merciless humiliation. "You are a failure, a fake CEO. You are not worthy of being a husband and certainly not a father. With Daniel, I finally live according to my true worth. Respected, spoiled, not stuck with a man who only knows how to code and attend meetings." Every word was a punch that made me stagger. I wanted to scream, to demand how she could be so cruel, but my throat closed up. Then Jennifer slammed the already signed divorce papers onto the table. The sharp slap of paper on wood rang in my ears. Sign it and finalize everything immediately," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "I do not want anything more to do with you." Without letting me say another word, she turned on her heel and walked out, her high heels clicking loudly on the wooden floor, leaving behind a cold, dusty house. I stood there watching her silhouette disappear through the door, emptiness spreading through my entire body. Now I had lost everything. Company, home, wife, and child. Tears rolled down again, but this time I did not wipe them away. I collapsed onto the floor, clutching my head, struggling to breathe. How was I supposed to go on living Grace? She was my reason for living. Just thinking of her made my heart ache unbearably. I quietly gathered the last of my belongings. A few changes of clothes, a family photo, and my old laptop. Everything crammed into a cheap duffel bag. I looked around the house one final time. The kitchen where we used to cook and laugh together. The bedroom where Grace loved to jump on the bed and hug her dad. The backyard where I taught her to ride a bike. Now they were nothing but memories. I got in the car and drove away, carrying whatever scraps of dignity I had left, yet feeling as though part of my soul had died with that house. On the road, I had to pull over because I could not drive anymore. I buried my head in the steering wheel and sobbed like a child. In the distance, Phoenix glittered with its lights, mocking my defeat. With the little savings I had left, about a few thousand from an emergency account, I rented a tiny run-down apartment in North Phoenix. It was not far from the city center, but it felt like a slum. Peeling walls, creaking wooden floors, and a moldy smell that hit every time I opened the door. The place had only a single bed, a mini kitchen, and a cramped bathroom with a rusty faucet. I lay on the bed, staring at the stained ceiling, wondering how my life had come to this. I survived day to day, eating hot dogs, drinking from public fountains, trying not to think about the past. By day, I wandered looking for work, but the scandal still followed me like a shadow. At night, sleep came in fits, haunted by nightmares of Jennifer and Daniel. About 4 weeks later, the divorce hearing took place. Given my current situation, no home, no steady income, no assets, I lost custody of Grace, the most precious thing in my life. I sat in the courtroom wearing the only old suit I still owned, watching Jennifer on the other side with her expensive lawyer. She looked radiant, perfectly made up, while I looked like a beggar. The judge read the ruling. Based on financial circumstances, custody of the child was awarded to Mrs. Jennifer Bennett. My heart shattered into pieces. Grace, my little girl with curly hair and a smile just like mine, would now live with her mother. And that man, my lawyer whispered. We never had a chance, Michael. As painful as it was, I had to accept it. I could not let my daughter live in poverty with me. At least with her mother, she would have her own room enough to eat and no debt collectors at the door. I pictured Grace in Daniel's luxurious mansion, playing in a big garden, getting a proper education. That was why I signed the papers, even though my hand was shaking. After the hearing, Jennifer did not even glance at me. She simply turned and walked away. I left the courthouse into the strong Phoenix wind that whipped dust into my eyes. I cried, but no one noticed. Little did I know that I had only stepped to the edge of the abyss. The tears I shed that night under the streetlights were merely the prelude to the darkest days of my life. I thought I had already hit rock bottom, that there was nothing left to lose. But fate was quietly turning, preparing to bring me to a moment of destiny, a moment that would turn everything upside down in a way I could never have imagined. After the collapse, I started submitting job applications all over Phoenix. I printed my resume at a cheap copy shop, put on the only old suit I still owned, and went from small offices to big tech companies. I applied for anything programmer, project manager, even administrative assistant, whatever might stick. I still remember the first day standing in front of a high-rise startup building downtown, heart pounding. I handed in my application, smiled at the receptionist, and waited. But everywhere turned me down. Rejection emails poured in like rain. Thank you for your interest, but unfortunately we are unable to move forward with your application at this time. Once I called to follow up and a recruiter told me straight to my face, the Bennett Innovations scandal is still fresh, man. Bankruptcy on your record. All those rumors, you are on every high-risk blacklist. Nobody wants the baggage. Those words cut like a knife. I used to be a hero in the tech scene. Now I was untouchable. Every rejection sent me home to collapse on the floor, hands shaking so badly I could not even hold a glass of water. Michael, what the hell did you do wrong? I kept asking myself, tormenting myself. Realizing I had no chance at decent-paying jobs, I finally took a janitor position at Desert Mirage Casino, one of the most famous casinos in Phoenix. I remember the interview. I showed up in an old t-shirt, exhausted, standing in front of the manager. "Any cleaning experience?" he asked. "No, but I learned fast," I answered, swallowing hard. He nodded. "Good enough. You start tomorrow." My job was sweeping hallways, pushing trash carts, and mopping the shiny floors under blinding neon lights. The smell of alcohol, cigarette smoke, and the endless clanging of slot machines filled the air. I used to walk into this place as a businessman. Now I just kept my head down and cleaned. Sweat poured off me. My back ached constantly, but I gritted my teeth and kept going. At night, to make ends meet, I delivered pizza for a fast food joint on the outskirts. I drove my beat-up old car in a bright red uniform, racing through the scorching streets. A few dollars in tips per order, enough to buy food and pay rent. Life was brutal and exhausting. 5 hours of sleep at most, wolfing down meals between shifts. But at least I was still standing. One day at a time, I told myself. I even started to feel a little stronger, even if it was just an illusion. One night, after a grueling janitor shift, I took a late pizza delivery. The shop sent me to an address in Oak Ridge Hills, the wealthy neighborhood with lush villas and sparkling pools. I drove along wide tree-lined streets. The night breeze carried the scent of fresh grass and flowers. "Big order, good tip," the boss had said. I did not think much of it. I just wanted to deliver and go home to crash. When I arrived, the mansion looked like a palace. Tall iron gates, perfectly manicured gardens, lights glowing everywhere. I parked, grabbed the steaming pizza bags, walked up and rang the bell. The chime echoed. The door opened. My heart nearly stopped. There stood my ex-wife, Jennifer. We both froze. I had not realized this was the house she now shared with Daniel Hughes. That familiar face, golden hair, flowing but now radiating arrogance. She hesitated for only a split second before her usual haughty expression returned. She smirked, voice dripping with mockery. "Well, well, look who it is, Michael. Reduced to this kind of lowly work now. From CEO to delivery boy, that uniform really suits you. Bright red and cheap." Her words slapped me across the face. My cheeks burned, blood rushing to my ears. I wanted to turn and leave, but my feet felt glued to the ground. Hearing the voices, Daniel strolled out wearing an expensive polo shirt wine glass in hand. He looked me up and down and let out a sarcastic laugh. "Not bad, Michael. Very working class. Quite the career downgrade from desk to streets, huh?" The two of them stood arm in arm in the doorway like the perfect couple, staring at me like I was something pathetic. Jennifer kept twisting the knife. "Grace would be so embarrassed if she knew her dad delivers pizza for a living. She is already used to the good life, you know." Even though shame was burning through me, I straightened my back and gripped the pizza bags tighter. I refused to let them see me break. "I am proud of my job because I earn an honest living," I said firmly, forcing my voice to stay steady. "At least I do not have to sleep my way to the top or use dirty tricks to survive, unlike some people standing right here." My words made Daniel scowl, but Jennifer just gave a scornful laugh. Without another word, I set the pizza bags on the front step and turned to leave. My heart was pounding. I just wanted to get out of there. Then I heard a small, familiar voice. "Daddy, did you come to visit me?" Grace came running out of the house and threw herself at my legs, hugging me as if she was afraid I would disappear. She was in pink pajamas, curly hair, messy, big eyes shining with tears. "Daddy, I knew you would come see me." She started crying, clinging to me. Joy hit me so hard I nearly collapsed. I crouched down, wrapped my arms around my little girl, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. The only warm moment I had had in months of ruin. "Baby. Daddy missed you so much." I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Grace buried her face in my chest. "I missed you too, Daddy, so much." But the happiness vanished in an instant. Jennifer stormed out, face twisted with fury. "Grace, get inside right now." She yanked our daughter away from me so hard that Grace screamed and reached desperately back toward me. "Daddy, do not go. Please do not leave me." I reached for her, but Jennifer scooped her up and carried her inside like a gust of wind. Daniel stood there laughing coldly. "See that, Michael? This is our world now. You are just a loser. Get lost." He pulled out his wallet, tossed a few crumpled dollar bills onto the ground, and walked back inside like a king. I stood in front of that mansion, powerless, as my daughter was dragged away. Another deep wound carved into my heart. Grace's cries still echoed, cutting like knives. I wanted to pound on the door to scream, but I was just a pizza delivery guy who had already lost custody. I turned, walked back to the car with legs like lead. On the drive home, tears blurred everything. I had to pull over to sob. Why is life so unfair to me, I asked myself. The image of Grace reaching out was unbearable. That was the night I truly hit rock bottom. But it was also the night I swore to myself that everything would change. In the days that followed, I kept dragging myself to work every single day, trying to hold my mind together by focusing on the smallest tasks. Early mornings, I put on my janitor uniform and pushed the cleaning cart through Desert Mirage Casino. While the endless clatter of slot machines reminded me of the glamorous life I once brushed against, I scrubbed every corner, sweat dripping onto the gleaming floor, forcing myself not to think about Grace. But the image of my little girl being ripped from my arms haunted me without mercy. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those tiny hands reaching out, heard her cry, "Daddy, do not leave me," echoing in my head. At night, while delivering pizza, I drove through dark streets, the desert wind blowing dust and pain through the open window. I told myself I had to stay strong, had to survive, because one day I would get my daughter back. She started crying, clinging to me. Joy hit me so hard I nearly collapsed. I crouched down, wrapped my arms around my little girl, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. The only warm moment I had had in months of ruin. "Baby. Daddy missed you so much." I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Grace buried her face in my chest. "I missed you too, Daddy, so much." But the happiness vanished in an instant. Jennifer stormed out, face twisted with fury. "Grace, get inside right now." She yanked our daughter away from me so hard that Grace screamed and reached desperately back toward me. "Daddy, do not go. Please do not leave me." I reached for her, but Jennifer scooped her up and carried her inside like a gust of wind. Daniel stood there laughing coldly. "See that, Michael? This is our world now. You are just a loser. Get lost." He pulled out his wallet, tossed a few crumpled dollar bills onto the ground, and walked back inside like a king. I stood in front of that mansion, powerless, as my daughter was dragged away. Another deep wound carved into my heart. Grace's cries still echoed, cutting like knives. I wanted to pound on the door to scream, but I was just a pizza delivery guy who had already lost custody. I turned, walked back to the car with legs like lead. On the drive home, tears blurred everything. I had to pull over to sob. Why is life so unfair to me? I asked myself. The image of Grace reaching out was unbearable. That was the night I truly hit rock bottom. But it was also the night I swore to myself that everything would change. In the days that followed, I kept dragging myself to work every single day, trying to hold my mind together by focusing on the smallest tasks. Early mornings, I put on my janitor uniform and pushed the cleaning cart through Desert Mirage Casino, while the endless clatter of slot machines reminded me of the glamorous life I once brushed against. I scrubbed every corner, sweat dripping onto the gleaming floor, forcing myself not to think about Grace. But the image of my little girl being ripped from my arms haunted me without mercy. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those tiny hands reaching out. Heard her cry, "Daddy, do not leave me," echoing in my head. At night, while delivering pizza, I drove through dark streets, the desert wind blowing dust and pain through the open window. I told myself I had to stay strong, had to survive, because one day I would get my daughter back. Yet the pain was a constant shadow, turning sleep into restless fragments and food into something tasteless. One evening, after another exhausting shift, the delivery app sent me to an address that twisted my heart the moment I saw it, the home of Jennifer's parents in Oak Ridge Hills, Maplewood. I stared at the address on my phone, my chest tightening. It was the house I had visited hundreds of times, once filled with laughter and family dinners. Just the thought of going there now made me want to cancel the order. George Wilson and Margaret Wilson. Jennifer's parents had once been like real parents to me. But after the scandal, they turned their backs completely. They never even called to check on me. Even though I dreaded seeing them again, I had no choice. I couldn't risk losing the job that kept me alive. "You're a man. You can't be weak," I told myself, pressing the gas pedal. On the way there, memories flooded back like an old film reel, making my heart race. I remembered the days when Sloan Tech was at its peak. I had saved my father-in-law, George Wilson, a retired businessman, from a massive tax debt using my company's financial management system. He called me in the middle of the night, voice trembling. "Michael M. in trouble. I'm about to lose everything." I sat for hours running analyses with my software, finding loopholes and pulling him back from bankruptcy. "You're my savior, Michael," he said, hugging me with tears in his eyes. As for my mother-in-law, Margaret Wilson, I had built her online fashion boutique from scratch. She didn't know anything about technology, so I designed the website, connected suppliers, and even put up the initial capital. "Son, I'm so proud to have a son-in-law like you," she said, kissing my cheek. And Emma Wilson, Jennifer's younger sister. I had paid her expensive college tuition for years. Emma dreamed of becoming a designer, and I sent money every month encouraging her. "Just focus on your studies. Let me handle the tuition." Back then, the Wilson family treated me like a hero, always calling me the man of the family. We gathered around the dinner table laughing, and I thought that happiness would last forever. Now it was nothing but a bitter memory. Even though I knew they had abandoned me, cold messages, total silence after the divorce, I still hoped they wouldn't be cruel enough to crush what little dignity I had left. "Maybe they'll treat me decently," I told myself, clinging to a shred of optimism. I arrived after dark. The house was brightly lit, music drifting from the backyard. I parked on the curb, grabbed the hot pizza boxes, and walked through the gate with my heart pounding. I saw the Wilson family and a few guests setting up a small party, a white cloth outdoor table, flickering candles, the smell of grilled meat in the air. They sat there laughing and chatting, looking exactly like the happy family I once belonged to. I planned to just leave the pizzas on the side table by the door and slip away without being noticed. I kept my head down, walked quickly, praying no one would recognize me. But the moment I stepped into the backyard, almost everyone turned at once. Their eyes locked onto me as if I were some strange animal that had wandered into their territory. My heart stopped. Cold sweat broke out on my neck. I froze, completely unaware that I had just walked into a trap they had set long ago. Philip Carter, dressed sharply in a gray suit and silk tie, burst into loud laughter that made me flinch. "Well, well, look who is delivering food right to our door. It is Michael himself." He said it deliberately loud, pointing at me like I was the evening's entertainment, from CEO to pizza delivery boy. "Fallen this far, huh? You look pathetic, son." His harsh, mocking tone made the guests around him roar with laughter. Colleen Carter, standing hotly by the table in a glittering evening gown, looked me up and down with pure contempt. "Lucky for my granddaughter she saw through your true nature in time and got out before you dragged her down with you," she screeched. "Otherwise my precious girl would be out here delivering pizza beside you right now. What a total failure." Her words stabbed like knives. My face burned. Haley Carter, now 26 with pink-dyed hair and flashy jewelry, was filming the whole thing on her phone, recording me in my delivery uniform to post online for laughs. "Come on, ex-in-law, smile for the camera. This video is going to go viral," she giggled, pointing the phone straight at my face. The guests smirked, pointed, and whispered loudly, "That is Jennifer's ex-husband. How sad. From riches to rags in one step, karma works fast." The whispers spread like wildfire, making me feel stripped naked in front of everyone. And then I saw Jennifer and Daniel standing together in the corner, arms linked affectionately, watching me with delighted eyes, as if they were enjoying the final act of a tragedy they had directed themselves. Jennifer smirked. Daniel sneered. They whispered something to each other, and both burst out laughing. My heart pounded wildly. Blood rushed to my head. Rage exploded inside me. I could not stand being surrounded and displayed like an exhibit. "Everybody shut up," I growled, voice shaking but resolute. I fought back by reminding them of everything I had done for them in the past. "Mr. Phillip, do you not remember I saved you from tax debt staying up all night analyzing your files? Mrs. Colleen, I built your online store and invested my own money to get you started. Haley, I paid your tuition and encouraged you to chase your dreams. I took care of everything. I treated you all like family, and this is how you treat me now." But they responded with icy contempt. Philip shrugged. "Everything you did was just the duty of someone trying to latch on to the prestigious Carter family. You should be grateful we ever let you in." Colleen added, "That was your good fortune, Michael. Now you are worth nothing." Those words were the final blow. I went numb. Haley kept filming. "Keep going. This is gold. This part will definitely go viral." Jennifer and Daniel just stood there silently watching me with satisfied expressions. I had nothing left to say. My hands trembling, I set the pizza boxes on the table, turned, and walked away in silence, while waves of mocking laughter mixed with the party music behind me. I stepped out the gate. The night wind blew hard, whipping dust into my eyes. I got in the car and sped off like I was escaping tears rolling down again. On the drive home, bitter memories flooded back. I remembered the wedding day when Philip clapped me on the shoulder. "Welcome to the family, son." Colleen hugged me. "This family is always open to you." Haley jumped with joy. Best brother-in-law in the world. Now it was all lies. I pulled over, punched the steering wheel until my knuckles hurt. "Why are they so cruel?" I sobbed, feeling my last shred of dignity crushed. That was the night I broke completely, but it also ignited a fire of hatred inside me. I swore I would rise again, that I would prove them all wrong. But for now, the pain swallowed everything, and I had no idea that a huge surprise was waiting just ahead. The following days passed in a thick fog. Then one night, after a shift that dragged on until late, I dragged myself back to my run-down motel room, exhausted to the bone, when a knock sounded at the door. I froze while pulling off my filthy shoes. Nobody ever visited this place, a slum filled with noisy neighbors and the constant stench of mold. "Who is it?" I called through the door, voice wary. No answer, just another knock, polite but insistent. I opened the door, and there stood an older man, elegantly dressed. He wore a perfectly tailored gray suit, silver hair, neatly combed, deep-set eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses. He looked like he had just stepped out of a boardroom, completely out of place in this run-down neighborhood. My heart started racing. Who was he? A debt collector, someone from my past. The man introduced himself as Harold Ford, his voice deep, warm, and refined. "Good evening, Michael Bennett. I am here about something important concerning your father." I froze, mouth open in shock. My father, Samuel Bennett, had died 5 years ago from a sudden heart attack. He had never once mentioned the name Harold Ford. "My father. Who are you? How did you know him?" I asked, my voice trembling, half suspicious, half curious. Harold smiled gently, not the least bit offended. "I was an old friend of Samuel." "May we speak inside? I promise I will not take much of your time." Out of politeness, despite my doubts, I let him in. The cramped room with its sagging single bed and rickety wooden table suddenly felt even more suffocating. I poured water from the rusty tap, offered him the only chair, and leaned against the wall myself. Harold began to speak slowly, as if opening a dusty old book. He told me that 15 years ago he and my father had co-founded a small startup. It was a piece of enterprise data management software, just two friends passionate about coding and dreaming big. We worked through the nights, ate pizza, laughed about the day we would make it. Over the years, through growth and expansion, that company had become the multi-billion-dollar giant known today as Orion Tech, a name I had vaguely seen in the news but never connected to my dad. My heart was pounding. My father, he was just a repairman. Harold shook his head. "Your father was the co-founder of Orion Tech, but he chose a simple life and kept it hidden from you so you could stand on your own 2 feet. Harold explained that he had kept my father's original founder shares intact, honoring a final promise. Samuel had told him, "Hold them for Michael until he needs them most." And today, Harold had come to transfer those shares, valued at approximately $120 million, back to me, fulfilling the promise he made to my father. His words hit me like thunder. I could not hide my shock and disbelief. $120 million. Me, the janitor, pizza delivery guy, suddenly rich. "You are joking, right? Haven't I suffered enough? Is this some kind of scam?" I jumped up, voice shaking, heart drumming wildly. Harold remained calm. "I understand your suspicion, but this is the truth." I demanded proof, documents, everything. Instead, he simply placed a sealed, aged yellow envelope on the table. "Your father's last letter," he said softly. "All the answers are inside." Then he left his business card embossed with the Orion Tech logo, told me to come to their headquarters whenever I was ready, and quietly left. The door closed. The room fell deathly silent. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter in my father's familiar, bold, slightly slanted script. I sat on the bed, took a deep breath, and began to read. To Michael. If you are reading this, it means I never got the chance to tell you these things in person. There is something I must confess. I deliberately kept my success with the company and the wealth I quietly held on to all these years hidden from you. I did not want you to grow up in my shadow or be chained by inheritance and expectations. I wanted you to walk freely on your own path, son. I never wanted you to be a copy of me. I wanted you to fly with your own wings. I have followed every step you have taken, and I have never once stopped being proud. Not because of numbers, achievements, or titles, but because of your character, the way you live with kindness, the way you care for others, and the way you always get back up when life knocks you down. You built Bennett Tech from nothing, with nothing but your sweat and your heart. Whether it succeeded or failed to me, you will always be my greatest pride. Michael, what I want for you is not money. What I want is for you to always choose to live rightly, to help others, and to keep your conscience clear in every situation. Money can lift you up or drag you down, and I believe you are strong enough not to let it ruin you. The shares I am leaving behind are not a reward and not a burden. They are simply a safety net, an arm I am sending from beyond to catch you when you feel you have nothing left to hold on to. When you fall to the bottom, never forget that I am still here in every good choice you make and every time you stand back up. Do not fear failure. Do not fear starting over. And never ever let anyone, not even those you love most, make you doubt your own worth. You were not born to stay down. You were born to go farther than I ever did. If one day you feel sad or lost, remember that I believed in you from the very beginning. And I still believe in you right now. Your father, Samuel Bennett. I burst into tears the moment I finished. Old memories flooded back like a tidal wave. My mother had died when I was 8 from a terminal illness. After that, Dad raised me alone on simple meals. Instant noodles, cheap sandwiches, canned soup hastily reheated after long shifts at the repair shop. Yet he always found time to teach me programming on the old computer he had fixed to show me how to repair electronics and to tell me that being a good person mattered more than anything. "Son, kindness is worth more than money," he would say, hugging me after another exhausting day. I remembered the nights he sat by my bed telling stories about the stars and dreams. "One day you will do something great." Now I understood he had been talking about himself, but hid it so I could find my own way. I sat motionless in the dark room, stunned by the secret about my father, and overwhelmed by the love he had quietly prepared for me all these years. 15 years of silence holding the shares, instructing Edward Clark to wait for the right moment. Dad, thank you for sacrificing so much to save the best for me. I whispered, tears falling one by one. I finally understood that everything he hid was not distance. It was the final protection of a father making sure the inheritance reached me when I was mature enough to receive it. Not when I was successful, but when I had fallen so I could learn to rise again. I realized this might be the greatest turning point of my life. The moment my father from the past reached out and pulled me back to my feet once more. That night I lay awake on the sagging mattress, my mind spinning in circles. My father's letter rested beside the pillow, his handwriting still seeming warm to the touch. $150 million. The number echoed in my head like a mad dream. Me, the bankrupt ex-CEO who scrubbed casino floors and delivered pizza, suddenly a multi-millionaire. It was beyond comprehension. It terrified and exhilarated me at the same time. What am I going to do with all this money? I stared at the stained ceiling and asked myself that question over and over. Pay off debts, buy a house fight to get Grace back. But deep down, I knew my father did not want me to use it for revenge or for luxury. He wanted me to stand tall again, live decently, and go farther than he ever did. I tossed and turned, memories of Dad flooding back. Evenings at the kitchen table while he fixed old watches and taught me how to take things apart and put them back together. "Son, anything can be fixed, even a life," he would say, eyes twinkling. Now he was fixing mine from beyond the grave. Dawn crept through the torn curtains and I made up my mind. I had to see Edward. This was the moment to act. No more hesitation. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual, showered, and put on the only decent suit I still owned, the same one I had worn to the divorce hearing. I looked in the cracked mirror and saw a different man, eyes still shadowed with fatigue, but now carrying a spark of hope. I called my bosses at the pizza place and at Desert Mirage Casino and asked for one day off, the first time in months. "Family emergency," I said, my voice shaking. Then I drove my beat-up old car to Summit Tech headquarters in downtown Phoenix, a gleaming glass tower that shimmered under the desert sun. My heart pounded as I parked and looked up at the huge sign, Summit Tech. This was my father's empire. I took a deep breath, clutched Edward Clark's business card, and walked into the grand lobby. Marble floors, sharply dressed employees' phones ringing everywhere. I felt like a beggar who had wandered into a palace. I told the receptionist, "I am here to see Mr. Edward Clark. He is expecting me." She eyed me suspiciously, but after a quick internal call, she nodded. "Mr. Clark is waiting for you on the 20th floor." The elevator climbed. Every floor felt like another beat of my racing heart. The doors opened, and there stood Edward in the same gray suit, smiling warmly. He shook my hand firmly. "Michael, I am so glad you came. Come into my office." Edward treated me with nothing but courtesy and respect. No trace of pity for my worn suit or my fall from grace. He poured coffee, offered me a comfortable leather chair, and asked gently, "Did you read the letter Charles would be proud of you?" I nodded, throat tight. "Yes, sir. I do not know what to say. Thank you for keeping your promise to my dad." Edward smiled. "It was my duty. Now let us make everything official." That very afternoon, an emergency shareholders meeting was called, attended by the company's top executives. Edward had prepared everything. "They need to meet you," he said. I sat in a vast boardroom, polished wood table, giant screens displaying financial charts, while about 20 directors and major shareholders filed in and looked at me with open curiosity. Edward stood and announced in a clear, resonant voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, today is a special occasion. Allow me to introduce Michael Bennett, son of our co-founder, Charles Bennett." A wave of murmurs swept the room. Many were shocked. Charles had a son. Why were we only finding out now? I sat quietly, heart-hammering, feeling like a specimen under a microscope. Edward continued. Charles deliberately kept his legacy hidden so Michael could make his own way. Today, in accordance with his will, Michael will receive Charles's founding shares. Lawyers entered, presented documents, signatures, even DNA evidence. Everything was verified quickly and without dispute. I signed the papers with trembling hands, as if in a dream. $150 million now officially mine. Edward proposed appointing me as Director of Special Projects, overseeing research and new growth directions for the company. Michael has real experience from Bennett Tech, he said. He will bring fresh perspective. The room fell silent for a moment. Then an older, silver-haired man, probably the vice chairman, spoke up. "Mr. Clark, with all due respect, the boy bankrupted Bennett Tech amid a scandal. How can we trust him? This is just nepotism because of founding blood." Others nodded in agreement. A bankruptcy on his record disqualifies him from leading any project. We need experts, not failures. The words cut deep, dragging up memories of the scandal, Jennifer the Wilson family's humiliation. My face burned, but I stayed silent and simply nodded. I understand what everyone is thinking. I'll prove myself. Edward backed me. Give the kid a chance. Charles would have wanted it. I started immediately. Quietly, I began learning everything from scratch. Summit Tech's technology, Stackett's complex management systems, billion-dollar internal finances, global market models. I spent hours in the company library reading documents, asking questions of younger colleagues who at first looked at me strangely. I worked late cold coffee beside me, just like the early days of Bennett Tech. Thanks to courage, humility, and the hard lessons from Bennett Tech's collapse, Betrayal. Risk management, human nature, I quickly proved my worth. Within weeks, I presented bold proposals integrating next-generation AI into core products, optimizing data flows to cut costs by 20%. At first, they were skeptical, too risky, but I backed everything with data, and once implemented, Summit Tech posted record-breaking 18% revenue growth in a single quarter. My focused, no-nonsense work style and accurate decision-making gradually turned skeptics into supporters. The vice chairman who had mocked me eventually clapped me on the shoulder. "Good job, Michael. Sorry I doubted you." Colleagues invited me for coffee, brainstormed ideas together. I felt alive again, only this time more humble. The board officially recognized me as a key strategic driver behind Summit's expansion into 3 new continents, Europe, Asia, and South America. I led the project's negotiated contracts, flew to Berlin, Tokyo, Sao Paulo. On every trip, I thought of my father. "Dad, can you see what I'm doing? I've gone farther than you." Success was healing medicine, yet I still ached for grace and carried the scars of the past. With solid finances behind me, I rented a spacious, comfortable house in Maplewood, a quiet neighborhood with green parks not far from Phoenix. 3 bedrooms, modern kitchen, backyard with a small pool. I moved in, bought new furniture, a real bed, a big desk. For the first time in months, I slept deeply without nightmares. This was a new chapter. No more rundown apartments, no more manual labor. But I never forgot my roots. I kept Dad's letter on my desk as a constant reminder to live decently. The first months at Summit Tech passed like a whirlwind, sweeping me into a relentless cycle of meetings, proposals, and major decisions. I worked like a man possessed. But this time it was fueled by genuine passion. Not mere survival, but the need to prove myself, to my father, and to everyone who had ever spat on my name. After 6 months, I completed the project that had stumped the company for 3 full years. A fully integrated global AI data optimization system that put Summit Tech head-to-head with giants like Google and Amazon. Top engineers had given up on it. Too complex, too risky, too expensive. But I, armed with the brutal lessons from Bennett Tech, knew exactly how to manage risk. I spent nights in the office coding and testing just like the old days. "Dad, I'm doing what you taught me," I whispered as I fixed the final bug. When the system finally ran perfectly and trial revenue jumped 18%, the entire team erupted in cheers. Edward clapped me on the shoulder. "Charles would be so proud of you, Michael." My heart swelled, but it also raced. This success was about to change everything. To celebrate, the company held a major press conference to announce the breakthrough, honor the project team, and reveal several high-level personnel changes, including my official emergence as the second-generation founder. The event took place in Summit Tech's grand auditorium, flashing cameras packed rows of reporters. I stood backstage, gripping the microphone, heart pounding like it had the first time I ever pitched Bennett Tech. "Calm down, Michael. You've got this," I told myself, taking a deep breath. Edward stepped to the podium. "And today, it is my great honor to introduce Michael Bennett, son of our co-founder Charles Bennett, and the man who led this breakthrough project to success." I walked onto the stage amid stunned silence from the press. A disgraced, bankrupt ex-CEO, once destroyed by scandal, was now standing in the spotlight of a multi-billion-dollar tech empire. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "That's the Bennett Tech guy, from rock bottom to the top again." "No way." I smiled, voice steady. "Thank you all. This project isn't just about the future of technology. It's also my own lesson in rising after falling." Cameras flashed non-stop. It felt like a dream, but I was also nervous. This news would spread far. The media exploded. Forbes, Bloomberg, TechCrunch, every major outlet in Phoenix and California ran the story. A bankrupt ex-CEO suddenly revealed as a $150 million founding heir and key strategist at a tech giant. Headlines screamed, "From bankruptcy to billions, Michael Bennett's real-life fairy tale. Rags to riches. 2.0, the comeback nobody saw coming." Podcasts, finance segments, and local Phoenix news devoured my story as the ultimate rise from the ashes. They interviewed old colleagues, dug up the Bennett Tech scandal, Jennifer's betrayal, and my father's hidden legacy. One popular podcast asked me live, "What got you back on your feet after everything?" I answered simply, "My father and the fact that I never stopped believing in myself." The news spread like wildfire. I knew the Wilson family had seen it too. Sitting in my new home, scrolling through articles on my laptop, my pulse quickened. What will they think now that I've made it? I wondered, picturing Jennifer staring wide-eyed at her phone. A few days later, my phone rang. Jennifer's number. My stomach dropped. The moment I heard my daughter's name, my heart melted. "Michael, Grace wants to see her daddy," she said, voice dripping with fake sweetness, as if nothing had ever happened. During my months of unemployment and despair, I had been too ashamed to fight for visitation. I didn't want Grace to see her father broken, penniless, hopeless. I still remembered nights in that filthy apartment clutching her photo and crying. "I'm not worthy to see you like this." Even after I stabilized and begged to see her, calling, texting, pleading, Jennifer always had an excuse. "She's busy with school, she's already asleep this week, isn't convenient." So when she suddenly called first, I knew exactly why. She'd seen the headlines. She knew I was rich again. Still, I agreed instantly just for the chance to see my daughter. "Fine." "When?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm while my heart raced. We arranged to meet at a neutral cafe. I arrived early, sat with a cold coffee, nerves jangling like a first date. When I walked in, only Jennifer was there. No Grace. She wore a bright red dress, perfect makeup, that old seductive smile. But now I saw the calculation behind it. My heart sank. "Where's my daughter? Why can't I see her?" I asked. She brushed it off. "She's with her grandparents." Then immediately pivoted to money, demanding $12,000 a month in child support. "Grace deserves the best now, Michael. That's pocket change for you, right?" She winked, voice syrupy. I understood perfectly. She had come running the moment she learned about my inheritance. But I still agreed because it was my duty to give my daughter a better life. "Fine, I'll transfer the money," I said, swallowing hard. But inside, suspicion flickered. What else does she want? In the weeks that followed, the demands never stopped. $2,000 for piano lessons, $5,000 for an elite summer camp, then endless expenses for Grace. Designer clothes, expensive toys, even Phoenix show tickets. Every call ended with, "She really loves that new dollhouse, Michael." I paid, but unease grew. Whenever I asked to video call Grace, the excuses returned. "She's asleep. She's at a lesson. She's with Grandma. Tomorrow, I promise," she'd say. Tomorrow never came. After weeks of sending absurd amounts while being denied even a single visit, alarm bells rang louder. Every new text demanding money made my skin crawl. Something dark was lurking behind all this. I could feel it. I knew something was very wrong. One afternoon, while I was in a meeting with the team discussing expansion into new markets, my phone vibrated. Unknown number, but a Phoenix area code. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway to answer. A young woman's polite voice came through. "Mr. Bennett, this is Miss Harper Grace's homeroom teacher from Oak Ridge Elementary. I need to speak with you about your daughter." My heart instantly clenched. The teacher. Why was she calling me Jennifer was the primary custodian, but the school must still have my old contact info. I took a deep breath. "Yes." "Hello. What's wrong with Grace?" There was a slight hesitation before she continued. "Grace has been showing some concerning signs lately. Her attendance has been irregular. Some days she arrives very late because no one could drop her off. Other days she's absent without explanation. Recently she's been coming in with dark circles under her eyes, looking exhausted and falling asleep in class. I'm worried, Mr. Bennett. Her mother says everything is fine, but I felt I should let you know." Her words froze me in place. I leaned against the wall, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white. All the luxurious life Jennifer had described, the mansion, the good school, the expensive toys, was the exact opposite of what the teacher was describing. Grace falling asleep in class, no one picking her up or dropping her off. My heart pounded like it was being squeezed in a vice. After hanging up, I stood motionless in the hallway for a long time, chest tightening with every breath. My little girl was not okay, and Jennifer had hidden it all. The image of Grace, the last time I saw her at the mansion, flooded back thin, saddened, running to hug me like she was afraid I'd disappear.